Welcome to our Real World Convos. I am here with Jeremy Negrey, and we are here to talk about business communication, tools in the workplace, things that go right, and a little bit about things that go wrong. So I guess let's start with what tools. So what types of communication tools have you used in your companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the majority of my career, I've worked for companies that were big Microsoft shops. So really very familiar with the Microsoft, what they call Microsoft 365 now, or 365 Copilot now is even the newest name, I think, suite of tools. For a brief time, I worked for a company that was big into G Suite, so a little bit in the Google suite of communication tools. But I know there's a ton of things out there, and depending on your organization and the size and the other tools that you work with, right, it can all depend on what you're using. But Microsoft, I think, seems to be a pretty safe bet for most people these days. So
yep.
Yeah,
agree. I was showing someone the other day how to use Copilot inside of PowerPoint, and it's, it can be really good. And sometimes it can just be okay, but sometimes it can be really good, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So what about like chat back and forth, or like what types of tools have you used just for common communication? I mean, I know right now we're using Google Meet, but like Zoom is preferred for some folks, Teams for other folks, but like I've used Slack before. I love Slack. I love tools like that. So what types of like chat or video tools do you prefer?
Yeah, absolutely. So I go way back to a product called Link, which eventually became Skype for Business and is now folded into Teams. So I've tried a bunch of different things. And I got to say that Teams and I have had sort of like a frenemy kind of relationship over the years, right? But more recently, I've really started to come around and appreciate all that Teams can bring to the table with its built-in video technology. It allows you to hold all kinds of different video meetings, from like one-on-ones to webinars to even live events that you can host, and it provides a bunch of reporting tools. So I've really gotten to be pretty comfortable with Teams. I've used Zoom as well. Zoom, was sort of the first one that really kind of hit it big.
Right.
And then it feels like Teams maybe surpassed them a little bit, but I have used Zoom a couple times recently, and it seems like it's kind of getting its footing again and being able to do a little bit more and more. But there's a ton of chat out there. Teams seems to be kind of cornering the market at this point, especially the way that Microsoft is integrating a lot of its other apps, such as Copilot, as you mentioned, into it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm interested too. I have a friend who was using Teams for like creating workflows, and that's like one step beyond like my level of comfort with the use of Teams. But I do like how it has so many specific layers of permissioning. I mean, it can almost be like too much on one side, but it can also be like, I think, from a security and a lockdown perspective and a privacy perspective, I think a lot of people prefer that. Have you ever seen things like this go awry? Like,
of course. So I would say probably the biggest faux pas that I have committed is I've been on a meeting, on a Teams video meeting, and having on my other screen, having sort of the back channel chat going on with some of the other participants, and then being asked to share my screen to show something, and I shared the wrong window. So,
oh snap!
So there may have been a snarky comment, right? So that's something you really got to be careful of, right? Like, be really cautious if you're trying to multitask while in a meeting, making sure that you don't kind of allow show something that you wouldn't want to show. But
yeah,
it ended up being okay. But still, I had a little bit of egg on my face for sure.
I do not think you are alone in this faux pas. I have also committed this faux pas. Once I had shared screen, I had shared the right thing, and then we continued with the meeting, and I forgot I was still sharing screen. And so I
Oh
moved
no.
Windows, and I backed myself into, I was writing an email. I was like, this is a really cool idea, but we are never going to implement this. And I don't understand how this person doesn't know that. And I realized
Ugh,
it.
yeah.
I did, but it was up there for some, like, not minutes, but definitely seconds. And it was bad. So
Yeah.
I think advice you would give to other people would be what?
Well, I suppose the right advice is to not do it, right? Like try not to multitask. But that's kind of like, telling your teenagers not to make the same mistake that you made when you were their age, right? But I would say like the best way to do that then, if you're gonna do it, run the back channel chat on your mobile device, right? Or something that's not
I
connected to
like
the meeting.
it.
Yeah, and that'll could save you some potential embarrassment.
That is actually really good advice, because I do have multiple devices. I tend to use them like all day and all night long, so I have to give them naps sometimes. So I think that's a great idea, because you could just roll it on another device entirely. That's really smart. I try to be very specific about like sharing the window or the tab, as opposed to sharing like your screen.
Yes, and if you can do it, that's great. Sometimes though, in the moment when I'm trying to share and
Oh yeah,
I get a little flustered and I, just like, okay, which one looks like the thing that I'm trying to share, right? So, yeah.
yes, for sure. I also had a situation where on Slack, so we had just so many Slack channels going that if you have multiple conversations that have the same person in them, you can't, it's relatively easy to swap conversations. And like if you're meeting with Susie, and then you also have another channel with Susie and Jamie, and you put the thing just for Susie in the Susie and Jamie channel. And I actually did this once, and it was related to HR information, which is a giant no-no. It ended up not being a thing because it wasn't any sensitive information, but it was, it wasn't like information about someone else, but it was information that I really should have just been having a one-on-one conversation with. So I think that's the other thing I would say, is just double check your channel, right?
Yeah. I think that's great advice, right? And we've gotten so used to, so these virtual tools, chat and, video calls, but it's always good to remember, right? Like sometimes a real conversation, and it could be a video conversation, is the right way to sort of exchange ideas or have a conversation about a matter, right? Rather than pinging somebody on Slack or in Teams or sending an email.
Yes, no, I think that's a super good point that we haven't talked about yet. Is it's, I think half of the effectiveness of the communication is the mechanism for the communication, right? Like I have gotten into so many email exchanges or even chat exchanges that should have just been a 5-minute meeting, and instead ended up being, like a giant thread of explanation after explanation. Yes.
Right? I'm guilty of that, right? Like I'll say, oh, can I ask a quick question? And the other person will say, sure. And, it ends up being a whole thing. So, I totally get that one.
Versioning. I've had that with versioning of docs, is that you're talking about what you think is the same document, but you're actually each talking about different documents. That's lots of fun.
Yes. And one of the things that I really love about Teams is that they've sort of integrated OneDrive into Teams. So there's a much easier version control, and even like sharing documents outside of Teams, like via Outlook. It's a lot easier just to share the link, right? And then control permissions and making sure everybody's always on the latest version. That has been a lifesaver as somebody who has gone through, the whole era of sending documents back and forth and underscore final, right? Like the whole thing.
Underscore for realsies this time,
exactly.
Right? No, the sending the link thing, I think super helpful. Also more dynamic, right? Because I did this recently to a whole bunch of stakeholders, sent out an email with a link to some like standard information, and by the way, we have like the best team, and one of the team emailed me and was like, I think that link, not not the link to the document, but a link within the document. I think that link, you might want to double check that. So I went in and I had embedded an incorrect link in the document that I sent out. So I was able to just change it right then. I didn't have to send out an updated email to 18 people being like, uh-oh, version 2, ignore version 1, you know.
Yes, that is true. That makes it so much easier.
It's very helpful. So if you were talking to someone who was just starting to get comfortable with, say they were in G Suite their entire life and now they're moving to Teams, what do you think is like one critical piece of advice or your best tip? Like your best tip for an awesome thing to do in the Microsoft world?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think if somebody was getting started, I would tell them to start easy, right? Start with just the chat and take some time every day, a couple minutes to explore something different, right? Microsoft has a lot of great free tools out there to kind of educate users on the different features and functionality of pretty much everything they make, but especially Teams. And as part of my professional development plan this year, I wanted to learn sort of some of the more advanced features of Teams. So I've sort of been exploring those a little bit and looking, to integrate additional apps within the Teams, or, I have a project team that I'm a part of, that we created a team specific calendar. So we always know who's going on vacation, who's on PTO, and we schedule our team meetings there. That way we don't have a single owner. Not one of us has to be the owner. So, I'm on vacation and I'm the meeting owner, somebody else can go in and change the invitation, right? So that's super helpful.
Yeah, no, 100%. The meeting owner pain is for real, especially when it's also external and internal and you try to record something, it can throw you off for sure. Yeah. One of the other things that I had just learned that I know Microsoft has a version of this, but I have not explored is the calendar feature, whereby you can actually put a calendar link. You can define hours, just like a Calendly. Is that how
really?
Yes. So there's a feature in Outlook and there's a feature in Google Calendar has the same thing, where you can go and you block off like when you're when you have spaces to have a meeting. Okay. And it generates a link. And what I did is I just put it in my email signature. So if I'm emailing someone, I know how fun, right? I was very proud of myself. But you can just, when you send your email, if you're going to meet with someone, you can just say, my calendar link is underneath my signature. Feel free to grab some time.
Yes, that would save all of the emails and pings that I get to say, hey, I'd like to set up a meeting. When are you available? Right? Like just click the link.
And then the calendar holds, right? And then you go and you put like 3 calendar holds on, you send them the times, and then they tell you So I think it's been there for a few months, but I just
I'll have to check it out.
We learned this a couple of weeks ago. So
thanks. See, you learn something new every day, right?
You do. You absolutely do. But I think what you said was so important is that like you actually have to be intentional about that.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's moving too fast. You have to okay, I'm going to reserve 15 minutes a day to learn the newest whatever. Because that was game changer for me. Yes. The calendar thing was game changer.
And there's just so much out there, and even small things, right, that are you might not think are super important, like being able to pin a file as a tab to your team channel, right? Like that can have a huge productivity impact on your day. So I when I work a hybrid role, and when I'm in the office, I try to set aside like the 20 minutes or half hour that I'm eating my lunch to do a little bit of professional development, whether that's looking up the latest features on Teams, or watching some LinkedIn Learning or something like that. So it's a good way. It's a good hack to feel like you're exactly.
Yes. Or someone could build a university that enables you to learn a little bit every day at your own pace.
It's the perfect opportunity to check out. Yes.
It is. No, it's awesome. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I think our students and our colleagues will really enjoy the the tips and tricks. And it's always good when someone is like enthusiastic about Teams, because Teams does get like sort of a bad rap sometimes.
It does, and like I said, we've had our moments, we've had our ups and downs, but more recently it's been more ups than downs. So
awesome. So no burn book for Microsoft right now.
That's right.
Okay.
Always
All
a
right.
pleasure, Sasha. Thank you so much.